Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Austin, and today we're talking about debt. And if you happen to have debt, what's the best way for you to go about paying that off? Now, if you're a human being on planet Earth, then you probably know just how easy it's become to take on different forms of debt. And we don't even really have to seek it out. They all come to us in the form of advertisements. We get letters in the mail from credit card companies saying that we've been pre-qualified for a card that gives us cash back or bonus miles whenever we use it for our day-to-day purchases. If there's a car that we've been wanting to get and we've been thinking about it, it seems that we just see ads online showing up that we can get auto loans at low interest rates, all bundled together with a message saying that we can get what we want and what we need now, and that we can simply pay the price later. The problem with this message is that although it's convenient, there is going to be a time that we do have to pay this amount back. And what happens for a lot of people is that they continue to add on to the debts that they owe, slowly making them larger and larger and larger, to the point that they have this giant debt ball sitting there, staring right back at them, and then wondering, how in the world am I going to pay this off? So if you happen to find yourself in a situation where there are debts that you owe, whether that's a small amount or whether that's a really large amount, let's talk about 3 things that you can do as far as taking a look at this debt, making a plan to pay it off, and setting that plan in motion today so that you can begin to see that amount that you owe shrink smaller and smaller, all the way to the point that you are debt free. So step number 1 is to simply stop taking on new debts. This probably seems very obvious, but in the same way that if you were to have a pipe burst in your home, and in that situation, you would want to take care of the source of the problem by turning off the water and then focusing on taking care of the rest of the mess. When it comes to your debts, you want to take a step back at any debts that you may be looking at taking on and asking yourself if you really need it at this time. Maybe you're a student who is looking at taking on another student loan. You can look to see what financial aid may be available to you, what scholarships are available if you're able to raise your grades a little bit, or maybe look at doing some sort of a side job where you can at least reduce the amount of money that you need to owe as you continue on through school. Perhaps there's been a car that you've been wanting to really buy for a while now, and in order to purchase it, you need to take out a loan. Alternatively, you could look at buying an older version of that car or a different model where you can afford to pay in cash so that you simply just don't have a monthly payment. And lastly, maybe there's just something else that you've been really wanting to buy that would just be very easy to put onto a credit card and increase your balance a little bit. However, if that balance continues to just creep higher and higher and higher month after month, then it might be a good idea to simply freeze the card or get rid of it entirely so that you don't have that temptation to continue to add to that debt ball. Now, all of this is easier said than done. There definitely are circumstances where it is necessary to take out and borrow money for certain needs, but when we do everything that we can to put the brakes on borrowing money, that's going to give us the greatest chance to see progress and success in shrinking our debts down smaller and smaller, which leads us into the second step of identifying our debts and choosing our debt payoff strategy. It's important that we build out a snapshot of the debts that we have so we know exactly what it is that we're working with. So for the first part, you're going to want to gather each individual loan. Write down whether it's a car loan, student loan, you have credit card debt, whatever it may be. And to the right of that, you're going to list the amounts that you owe on each debt, as well as the interest rates associated with them. And then finally, if you have any minimum payments, make sure to write those down as well. Once we've gathered all of the information that we need, this is going to allow us to look at 2 of the most common strategies as far as paying off these debts, and that is the avalanche strategy and the snowball strategy. Now, I'm not really sure why both of these strategies have snow as part of the analogy and the name, but when we do take a look at them, the effects of these strategies do fit the analogies pretty well. So let's take a look at both of them individually and then help you determine which one might be the best fit for you. Now, really quick before we get into each of these methods, there's 2 things that you need to determine and to keep in mind. The first thing you need to figure out is exactly how much money you're going to be able to put towards your debts every single month. If you need tips on budgeting and determining what that number is for you, go ahead and check out the other video that I have on my YouTube channel where I go over some tips, and I also talk about determining how much money you can put towards your debts on a monthly basis. Second thing that you'll want to do is make sure that with the minimum payments that you listed down, that you always pay those first before doing anything else. You definitely don't want to miss your minimum payments and deal with the late fees and the penalties that come along with doing that. So with these 2 tips, let's say that you are able to put $1,000 towards your debts every single month and you have $400 of minimum payments. You would pay off those $400 in minimum payments, and then with that remaining $600, you'll take a look at these methods, determine which one is right for you, and that'll help you figure out which debt you should be putting that extra money towards every single month. The first method, the avalanche method, approaches paying down debt from a point purely of math and numbers, and its goal is to pay down debt as quickly as possible by taking care of the balance with the highest interest rate without thinking about how big the loan itself is. This would have us list the debts down as follows, from the highest interest rate all the way down to the lowest interest rate. The factor that's working against us when it comes to interest rates is time when we don't pay our loans. The longer time there is, the more interest we're going to pay. And so by paying these higher interest rates down first, this is going to reduce the amount of interest that can build, which means that we're going to pay less money overall. So just like an avalanche starts from the very top and powers its way down, we also start from the very top at our highest interest rate in our debts and efficiently work our way down to clear them out, which is going to save us the most money in the long run. The only catch with this strategy is that it requires a lot of discipline to be able to really stick to it. If you take a look at our loans, some of our highest interest rates are also tied to the biggest loan balances that we have. And it can be easy to get discouraged that even though you're following this plan exactly as you should, to feel like you're not really seeing a whole lot of progress month after month as you continue to make your payments, and you're never able to really get rid of any of your loans for a long time. This is the exact argument that a lot of people have against the avalanche method, that though it works by the numbers, it can be very difficult to follow. And this is where the opposing snowball method comes into play. Now, the snowball method approaches paying down debt by appealing to our psychological nature as people. We live in societies today where a lot of the messages that we hear are geared towards the idea of instant gratification or seeing results quickly for the things that we're doing. Ultimately, we don't really want to wait. And that's exactly what the snowball method caters to. When we take a look at our debts, instead of listing them from the highest interest rate to the lowest, we're going to flip it and focus only on the amount of money for each debt, listing them from the smallest dollar amount to the largest dollar amount. As we go about paying off our debts and starting our plan, we're able to have these small wins very quickly, where in a matter of a few months, we're able to cross off the top debt on our list, which provides a lot of motivation and a lot of power as we're seeing progress in our list shrinking smaller and smaller. And just like in those old cartoons that you would see, where the snowball would start at the top of the hill very small and roll down bigger and bigger and bigger. As you continue to cross those things off your list, those payments that you had towards those old debts can then be combined into the next debt on the list, making that progress seem quicker and quicker, all the way until the point where you have no debts left and everything is paid off. Now, it's important to remember that the snowball method does not offer the same benefit of paying the least amount of interest over the period of your debt payoff plan, but both the avalanche method and the snowball method have pros and cons. So that brings up the question of knowing which of these methods is going to be best for you. In deciding, you need to ask yourself, when it comes to managing your money, if you're someone who's largely emotionally driven when making your decisions, and if you're someone who needs to see those small wins, then something like the snowball method, of course, is going to be your best option. However, if you're someone who is able to set aside your emotions and to see things from a logical standpoint according to the numbers, then of course something like the avalanche method is going to be your best option. The best thing with all of this is that, of course, you don't have to pledge your loyalty to one method or the other. You're able to test things out and figure out what's going to work best for you in the long run. Once you've determined what strategy is going to be best for you, you're ready to move on to the next step, which is to take action today on this plan and to continue learning. It can definitely seem overwhelming to start putting into action a plan to pay off all of your debts, especially if it seems like a very large amount right now. But just like any journey that you start, it always begins with that first step. And in creating a plan and putting it into motion, it will start with that first day. And if your goal is to pay off all of your debts, there eventually will be a time where you are able to say that you're debt free. It will also be important for you to continue to educate yourself through this process about money and developing good habits and a good mindset around it. Because if you were to take a step back and look at your current financial situation, you might be able to recognize that either you simply weren't taught much about money and how to manage it growing up, or you've simply developed some habits around finances that may have landed you in your current situation where you find yourself. Either way, it's important for you to gain that understanding and that knowledge and those skills needed to bring you out of a current situation of debt, but also beyond that point, so that if you have certain goals surrounding retirement or things that you want to accomplish financially in your life, you're able to be equipped with everything that you need to make it all happen. So I hope this video was helpful to give you some tips and ideas of things that you can do your own further research into when it comes to creating a plan to pay off any debts that you have. And if you got value out of this video, make sure to give it a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. And please let me know in the comments down below what questions you all have and what you would like to learn going forward, as I'm here to help you out. So stay happy, stay humble, and I'll see you next time.